Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today what we're going to be doing is, we've spent the last few videos in the state of Massachusetts in the United States, and I thought maybe we could branch out a little bit in this video and talk about one of these states to the north of Massachusetts, which is Vermont. And Vermont is one of the smallest states in the United States. When I was out in the Berkshires, we weren't too far away from Vermont actually, which is where I picked up this road map and guide. There was a lot of advertisements for Vermont in the area. It was just a short drive away. And so I thought one thing we could do today is talk a little bit about Vermont, explore it a little bit, and unfurl this kind of map that I have here and kind of take a virtual journey through Vermont by looking through this map. So Vermont is spelled V-E-R-M-O-N-T. Is one of the 6 states of New England, the others being obviously Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine. And Vermont is a small state. It is the 6th smallest state in the United States, but there is quite a lot to see in Vermont. Maybe not in terms of the big city life, but in terms of natural attractions, as well as a lot of farms and just nice people. So I've been to Vermont a number of times. I looked at colleges up in Vermont when I was applying for universities, and I loved it up there. It was really nice. Ultimately, I didn't decide to go to school up there, but I would absolutely go back, and I've actually been wanting to go back for a little bit, so maybe we will do that at some point. But anyway, Vermont, for reference, I live in a relatively small town by Massachusetts standards. However, if you were to put that town in Vermont, it would be the 3rd largest city in the state of Vermont, which that'll give you a little bit of perspective as to how kind of sparsely populated it is. But in terms of Vermont, some famous people that you might know from Vermont are Damon Wayans, who is a very famous actor and comedian who comes from Brattleboro, I think. It might be something different than that, I can't remember. Bernie Sanders is the current senator of Vermont. He ran for president multiple times, didn't win either time, but he's very popular with a lot of young Democrats in the United States. Another one is Noah Kahan. He is from Vermont. He is a very well-known musician who kind of has like this alternative folk style. Not really like my type of music, to be honest, but my closest friend really likes him, and he's really popular, so he's very well known. And then maybe the last person that you might know is a certain Ted Bundy, who was born in Burlington, the largest city in Vermont. I think it's pretty well known who Ted Bundy is, famous criminal of the 1970s. Made his name criminally out on the West Coast, but in the western part of the U.S., but he was born in Burlington. So if I'm looking down, I wrote down a couple of things just to remind myself some pointers. But let's open this up a little bit, and one thing I wanted to kind of share to give you some perspective was this right here. it's a little map within the map, and it has Vermont here in green, and then it has its proximity to other states in the area. And then on the left here, you have the mileage from Montpelier, the capital of Vermont, to major cities in the United States and Canada. And actually, the closest major city to Montpelier is actually in Canada. That would be Montreal in Quebec, which is 132 miles away. For reference, that's probably about, if you're going about 60 miles an hour on the highway, and ignoring the Canadian border checkpoint, it'll get you there in about a little over 2 hours. Some other major cities that are close by include Albany, which is the capital of New York, Boston, which we all know very well is the capital of Massachusetts, and Hartford, Connecticut, which is the capital of Connecticut and the second largest city in New England. But anyway, I think what we're going to do now is just take a look at the map, and you won't have to see my face anymore. You can just look down and I'll have a close-up of the map, and we'll go over some places to see in Vermont and kind of how you get there. All right. Okay. So I've got part of the map unfurled so you don't have to see me struggle with the map. This is a rather big map when it's fully unfurled, and so I decided to separate out Vermont into the southern part, which we're looking at right now, and then we'll go and do the northern part after. So this sliver here of this cross section, I'm going to just start at the top of the page up here, and then come down and around. This is the border of Vermont with New York to the west. And then along the southern edge, we have the border with Massachusetts and some of the towns in northern Massachusetts you can still see, such as North Adams, Florida. And then going along the eastern edge, you have right through here, right along here, you have the eastern edge of Vermont next to New Hampshire. And let me just straighten this out a little bit. Something that you can notice right away when looking at this map is this green area right here, right along here. And it also comes up here as well and stretches into the northern part of Vermont. And what that is the Green Mountain State Forest. Well, actually, it's a national forest, excuse me, not a state forest. And part of the Appalachian Mountains do go through Vermont. In Massachusetts, the Berkshires are the sub-range of the Appalachians. In Vermont, the Green Mountains are that sub-range of the Appalachians. And if you ever go to Vermont, the mountains do look pretty similar to Western Mass. We are in a pretty similar area. So if you saw the hills on the Berkshires video, then you can probably use your imagination and apply that to Vermont as well. Okay. So looking at the main cities in Vermont, we have down here the city of Bennington. And city is a very loosely used term here because these are not cities by any stretch of the imagination. These are very much towns. Many of them have less than 10,000 people in them. But for our purposes right now, we're going to call them the cities of Vermont. Down here along the eastern edge, you have Brattleboro, which is well known for its skiing. A lot of famous skiers and snowboarders come from Vermont as well, a lot that have participated at the Olympics. Another city, Springfield, and colloquially, Springfield is one of the most common city names in the United States. The capital of Illinois is Springfield. One of the major cities of Massachusetts is Springfield. So if you're in a state, it's highly likely you're going to find a Springfield somewhere. Okay. Another city that you can find is the city of Rutland, which is a little bit more northerly, and you can find that between the two Green Mountain State Forests. One thing that you will notice as well if you look to the west is the river through here, and that will get larger and extend up into the top half of the state, which is one of the main attractions. What this river is called, I'm completely drawing a blank right now, but it flows into Canada, and it is one of the tributaries of the much larger St. Lawrence River, which is a very large river in North America. Okay. I think in terms of sites and attractions, as you can see, you've got all the attractions listed right here. This map was put together by the Vermont Tourism Agency, and throughout the state you can find, just basically follow these numbers, and you can find them on the map. For example, if you wanted to, say, go to the Bromley Mountain Resort, it is number 47. You could look on the map and you could find 47 right here. So that's really handy. If you want to see certain sites, you can do that. One thing that you'll also find in Vermont on a lot of like the country roads or a lot of the back roads is a lot of covered bridges. And these are more well known in the state of New Hampshire, but they're also very widely dispersed in the state of Vermont, and they're very picturesque, especially during the fall when the leaves are changing. You've probably seen it on Instagram at some point, or in some kind of atlas, or some kind of thing that deals with geography. All right. So we also have a few roads that cut through here, and they're in red. But in terms of the southern part of the state, that's probably about it. There's some farms dispersed everywhere, a lot of woods. The main attractions for me are in the northern part of the state, so we're going to flip to that right now. Okay. Here we have the northern slice of the state of Vermont, And for me, this is where a lot of the attractions are. This is probably the more exciting part of the state. No disrespect to southern Vermont, but we have, extending from that southern part of Vermont into the northern half, we have the Green Mountain National Forest again, which kind of works its way into this part of the state. And as you can see here, that river that I was talking about eventually turns into the well-known Lake Champlain, which is a very large body of water that separates the state of Vermont from the state of New York. And I guess you could also say from Canada as well, because it extends into Canada. And then we continue along the eastern half here. And that is the border with New Hampshire that eventually comes to a head right here. And then that northern barrier is the border with Canada, more specifically the province of Quebec, which is a French-speaking province of Canada. And you'll actually find, as you get further north into Vermont, there are some cities, towns, communities that have their name off of a French-based structure. So, like, for example, the county up here of Orleans, and if you were in France, you'd pronounce Orléans. And then also the capital, Montpellier. We say Montpellier here. There's a French city that's known as Montpellier that kind of comes from that French structure. So we're going to look at some of the cities here. As I already talked about, there's Montpelier, which is the capital of Vermont. Then you have the city of Barrie, which there's actually a town in Massachusetts in the middle of nowhere named Barrie as well. You have the city of St. Johnsbury, which is right here. And then going towards the western part, you have the city of St. Albans right here, which is absolutely a town. It's not a city. And then you have probably the most culturally significant point in Vermont, which is the city of Burlington, which is a personal favorite of mine. I love Burlington. Okay. And again, you can kind of see through here, you've got several attractions that you can find in the map legend. And here we have, I'm going to go back to Lake Champlain here. Lake Champlain is a very big body of water, and the city of Burlington actually rests right on the banks of Lake Champlain, and you can see it completely overlook this. The city completely overlooks the lake, or the lake completely overlooks the city, however way you want to look at it. It provides a really beautiful backdrop. And the city of Burlington is very nice. It's a very walkable city. There are some hills kind of as you get towards Lake Champlain. But there are a lot of cool little shops and a lot of good places to go out and eat as well. I miss Burlington. I want to go back pretty soon. One thing in Burlington that you can do is you can take a lake tour of Lake Champlain. There's a cool little aquarium actually right on the banks of Lake Champlain, and you can also take a boat out from that area and go take a guided tour. Now, an interesting local legend that you will find in Vermont is, well, I know that many people have heard of the Loch Ness Monster in Scotland, but here in Vermont, we have the legend of Champ, who is the supposed lake monster who resides in Lake Champlain. And one thing that you can do that's kind of cool is there's a local legends tour that will actually take you out on the water and talk through you about the history of the legend and where people have gone searching for Champ before. That's really fun. I would highly recommend that. There's so much lore regarding Champ in the area that the local baseball team, which is based in Burlington, has named themselves the Vermont Lake Monsters, which I think is really cool. That's always something that's super unique about this area. I love that. And like I said, Burlington is probably the most culturally significant area of Vermont. When you're in the majority of Vermont, it feels very rural and like there's not a lot going on. And then you get into Burlington and it's just a very different vibe from the rest of Vermont, which I quite like. It's nice. So, as you can see, you have also some of the main roads that go through here. You have Route 89 and Route 2, which connects Montpelier and Burlington. And then 89 also goes down into the southern part of the state. And then you've also got Route 93 and Route 91, which kind of straddles the border with New Hampshire. 91 actually eventually goes into Canada and becomes Route 55 up into Quebec. Another maybe less well-known place that is worth checking out is this lake up here. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it. It is a long name. I will put it on the screen as we're talking right now. But it starts in Canada and extends down into Vermont. And you could theoretically go straight from the water from Vermont into Canada. And yeah, if you go to Vermont, I would highly recommend, as I said, going to Burlington and also checking out the islands in the middle of Lake Champlain. Do a boat tour. It's super cool. And if you're going to go at any time in the year, obviously the most tourists that are going to be there are in the fall. There's actually been a couple places in Vermont that have banned visitors because there are too many people from social media that have taken advantage of the sites, which is unfortunate. That's not to say Vermont isn't a tourist-friendly state, but I think they just want people to leave the area in a nice condition like it was before they came, which is understandable. So yeah, that was the northern and southern pieces of Vermont. And here you can, if you really want to find every single location in the state of Vermont, you can cross-reference that here, where every single location is listed in alphabetical order, and you can use these marks around the map to locate which area of the state you can find them in. Okay, well, I think that's going to be it. My camera battery is dying, and we're almost out of juice, so I think we're just going to wrap it up here. But I hope you enjoyed this kind of guided trip through the state. And if you ever get the opportunity to visit Vermont, I would highly recommend it. And hopefully we can go see it on this channel as well. Next video, I'm going to branch out into a little bit more international stuff. Step away from the US for a bit. And yeah, once again, I want to thank you guys for all the support so far. It's been fantastic. We're starting a little bit of a community here, which is great. And again, I hope you guys are doing well and you're taking care of yourself. All right. See you later.